Hello, welcome to the Wellness Lab podcast, where we strive to provide valuable insights, educational content, and great advice and tools to help you with your overall wellness. Today, we have Justin Currie here to give us lots of insights from his leadership trajectory overall as an executive entrepreneur. And I love what you have on your LinkedIn as a strategist overall, where you are sharing your journey, how you have worked on your business, on multiple ventures, on a busy schedule, but also having this personal side of things, having a new baby, congratulations recently, and obviously working with your business and other things on the go. So happy to have you here, and please give us a quick intro of yourself, your background, and then we'll dive into the conversation. A quick parenthesis for everyone. Below, we have links to Justin's socials, website, and whatnot. Please check them out. There's lots of value and on what he does, and also on how he's doing things, not only from a professional side of things, but personally. So thank you, Justin. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Lily. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to jump on here. And I've listened to the podcast, and you're doing a great job. So I was excited to be a part of it. So yeah, just kind of to get in a little bit more about me. So my name is Justin Currie. Obviously, I own FEMA Home Care, which is a non-medical home care agency in Pennsylvania. And I also own Masters of Home Care, which is a consulting agency. And we consult for home care agency owners all across the US and up in Canada as well. And so how I kind of, ended up down here, I was Canadian originally. I was from Saskatchewan. And I owned an inspection business actually up in Alberta. I moved from Saskatchewan to Calgary, Alberta. And I was there for about 10 years. I owned an inspection business in the oil and gas. As everybody knows, it's huge up there. So that's kind of what everybody did. And there was some problems with that. It wasn't the most environmentally friendly. There were some problems with that, with the environment, with the government. And it just kind of seemed like it was an uphill battle all the time. And even though it was a profitable company, it unfortunately just wasn't very personally rewarding for me. And so during that time frame, I met my fiance, who happens to be from Pennsylvania. That's why I geographically ended up here. So during that time frame, my grandma, she fell ill, and she kind of started going through the decline. And that was about a 5-year span that we kind of watched that and learned more about the industry and what was needed, but mainly what kind of the problems were in the industry and what the pain points were. And that got me really interested in the home care space. So I spent a few years working on setting up my company and immigration and everything like that. And fast forward to today, I've been in the US for about 7 years now. Own my own non-medical home care agency. We had a massive year last year. It was our second year on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies. I was lucky enough to be named one of the Philadelphia Titan 100 top CEOs, which was really rewarding. We formed a partnership with a private equity company. And in addition to that, I had my first baby girl here. So it was, needless to say, 2025 was a busy one, but it was all fun. It was all good things. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Amazing. Such a great story. And obviously, it sounds like you crushed it during 2025 and more to come this year. I'm sure about it. And thanks for sharing, obviously, your personal side of things. Lots of what we do and where we are right now has gotten us from these things. Like maybe you meet someone, your family, personal situations that at times might not be happy moments, I know, but obviously it shows a lot resilience and how you can build from or toughen up from certain situations. So that's amazing. And then one of the things that obviously will come in handy to learn from you, and how did you handle all these demanding pressures, the things you've been juggling through in the last, I would not say year, because what you saw last year is that effect of all the hard work you've been putting in the last 6 or 7 years, and probably to see how you've been managing well to have a balance overall, to have your business running, but as well having a baby, being at home present with your wife and family overall. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so good question there. And it's I think it's important to kind of frame it in the aspect like, before I started my company, before I had my baby and all these things happen, I was big into working out, and I was starting to eat a lot healthier. And so a lot of it was habitual. It was forming habits beforehand and kind of leading that into that progression of entrepreneurship. And if you don't have those habits, it's never too late to start habits. You don't have to start eating perfectly or start working out every day or anything like that right off the start. It's just kind of a habit you form over time. So it was kind of funny actually working in the oil and gas industry up north. Is we got up very, very early. We were up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. every day. So that wasn't really a problem for me. So throughout that time frame, I was able to really get up early. So I'd get up at 4 or 5 a.m. I'd get a workout in, I'd do a sauna and a cold tub, and just really kind of take care of my health so that I was all set for the day. So before anybody even started their day, I was kind of plowing through all of that. And and that was kind of, I would say, a lot of that came from just habits that were learned over time. But you're absolutely right. When you add new variables into the mix, things like starting a company, at the start, it actually didn't take that much time, right? Because I didn't have clients calling me. I didn't have HR problems and, legal things going on, right? So it wasn't actually like that stressful off the start. But once you grow the company to a certain stage, it becomes a little bit more and more stressful, right? And then when you're trying to juggle that with family, a lot of business owners, they have kids and everything, 2, 3, 4 kids, makes it really, really challenging to kind of maintain your routine and stay healthy. And I think the important part that helped me kind of get through those stages was being hyper intentional. It's really, really easy to let life kind of run you, especially when it's really, really busy. You have to kind of take control of that back. And that's what I did. And I actually leaned pretty heavily on AI. I have a health and performance GPT that I set up inside of Chat GPT, which has, I know not everybody's comfortable, uploading certain documents and things like that to Chat GPT, but I don't really care if, the government knows my blood pressure or anything like that. So, so I upload all my health information. I upload all my blood panel results, my DNA testing, any results I upload to that GPT. I have a daily check-in that I check in every day if I'm having any challenges, if I'm reacting to any foods, anything like that. I'll put all my meals, my physical, my mental state. I'll add all of that information in there on a daily basis. And what that does is it just kind of, it keeps tabs on me as a person. But then when I go to try and, plan out my schedule, it really helps with that. So Chat GPT, it sounds funny because it's almost like a human being now, but it's almost like having another person there. So it knows my health background. So when I tell it, I say, hey, I have a 9-month-old baby. I want to spend this amount of time with her. I want to work these hours during the day, and just exactly what I want my week to look like. It will tell me when to maximize and when to fit in my workouts, when to fit in my sauna and my cold tub, my recovery time. It will help you kind of plan all of that. And so, but like I said, you have to be intentional to do that, right? A lot of people will just kind of let it, they won't really put in that effort to kind of figure out a proper schedule for them. But it doesn't really matter, how busy you are. You can find time and you can move things around a little bit to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your body and your and your family, and all of those ones that should be priorities that kind of slip to the wayside, especially in the entrepreneur world. But if you're hyper intentional about putting them first, prioritizing them, and then the work kind of fits in after, you can still get everything accomplished as long as you're just maximizing your time. So I would say those are some of the ways that I've kind of really leaned into just being intentional about my health.
Thank you, Justin. And you mentioned really that's key, being intentional. Sometimes it's not the quantity of time, but it's the quality, right? If you're going to go do you'll have I'll say 20 minutes for a workout, but if it's intentional, if you're present, if you're not like maybe just thinking of what are you missing out or what are the other things you have to on your to-do list, then you're working on that, your body, your physical aspect, and then move on to the next thing. And it's amazing you're leveraging AI. I find one of the things that I've been using, proving, and part of the podcast back end goals for me is testing how we can leverage AI specifically from a health standpoint and other components, let's say mental wellness or other things. I think it's really interesting to learn how you can find the support. And I know there are some caveats. You have to be mindful and careful on how to use the
Sure.
information. But if you are savvy enough and if you input like the right prompts and data points, then you'll get a lot of benefit from it. As you said, this will act as your personal coach, as your mentor, and different ways than that. Sometimes if you're working one-on-one with coach or with a personal trainer, there are some disconnects, let's say. They might not be talking to each other, which is one of the things that you have built kind of a system for yourself that works. And the other thing is you have it available 24/7. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, you might be having a hard time or you just wake up at 3 a.m. with a worry. Then you can just quickly take a look or find some type of things that will connect the dots and get you back into where you were and avoid those setbacks for sure. So I think it's great. Maybe that's another thing you can give to others and share. And I'm sure you'll be successful on having this type of blueprint with others. Just an idea that came to my mind. So overall, that's great. And the other thing that you have mentioned as part of the having different pillars, right? You have your health, you have your physical, mental component, and whatnot. Obviously, that will translate as well on what you're doing and how you're supporting others. Because if you're well, then everyone else, you can name it. It can be your family, it can be customers, your the people that work with you. So I find if you are taking care of yourself, if you are ahead of the game, as you said, like waking up earlier and doing the basics that will help you be present, be full of energy and whatnot, will be just being ahead of the game one step. So I found just to maybe say for me, be waking up like 5 a.m. club, waking up at 5 a.m., making sure I have my workout in, having just certain things done beforehand has helped me be prepared for my day. And also plan for the unexpected, because sometimes I know maybe 9 a.m. a client is calling and they have an issue, and then I have to probably put down certain things, but I know at 5 a.m. everyone is asleep, right? So that's when I have my time. My time, it's valuable, and then I'll be good for others. So that's really good that you have worked a system that works for you. And for others, it might be a different time, not 5 a.m. or whatever. But I know for that specific planning and being with yourself and your thoughts, it's amazing.
Absolutely. No, I really that's my favorite time of day. I mean, that's when you can really think, you can really get a lot of work done. It's quiet, the family's still asleep, so it really is kind of that time you can get like that independent thought time in, which I think is important.
Yes, that's great. And the other thing that will translate obviously into how you've been working and with yourself with a framework, a blueprint. I think that's the second thing that you will add value to. Specifically talking about your business, you will be creating a blueprint or a framework for others to be successful in what they do, in this case for home care. So I find this, it's not only something that will be replicable and scalable for yourself, but for others that you're working with. So have you found that is the end result, or that's what's been happening?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of funny. It's kind of a staged process in when you're exiting your business and when you're stepping out of operations. It's a little bit of a staged process. It's not so much of I'm going to delegate this out to someone and I'm just going to kind of have this free time to do, what I want to do. I would say right now, even though I'm not in operations anymore in my business, it's still very difficult to schedule, right? Because I'm definitely I still need to answer a lot of questions. I'm still working on strategy for the company. I'm still working on the direction, on the growth. So there's still a lot of things to do. So scheduling doesn't really become any easier. Um, can you still hear me there, Lilia?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead,
Okay,
Justin. Sorry.
perfect, perfect. Sorry. So yeah, it's kind of a stage process. So delegation is kind of the first step. We all talk about delegating things, automating things. That's kind of the first stage, right? That's when you're still full on in operations. And so what I did was I started delegating things out. But that only got me to a certain point. And it's kind of funny. I actually just did a LinkedIn post on this today. But that gets you to a certain point, but you want your employees to take ownership in the company, right? You want them to think like they have ownership, they like they're running it like their business. So what we did, it's very, very generous also, but I believe it leads to more growth in the end and more profitability in the end, is developing just really powerful incentive plans for your employees. And that takes delegation to a whole nother level, right? When they can make double their salary if we hit a certain target in a given year, that's pretty inspiring to them, right? And it's pretty motivational. And it's, to be honest with you, it's actually pretty unusual, right? There's not a lot of companies that can offer them that same thing. So it automatically makes you, kind of the employer of choice in the area and in the industry. But also what I've noticed within my team is they have, just as much of a sense of ownership in what's going on as I do. And so when I come in, I know things are handled, and that doesn't mean problems and things don't arise. It just means that they're taking care of them. They're on top of them before I even have a chance to hear about them, right? So having that incentive plan is just kind of like delegation on a whole nother level. And they're taking ownership. Everybody has their own area and their own focus, and that's what they're in charge of. And that doesn't mean that they can't cross boundaries and help each other out, but they each own a certain specific set of metrics, and that's all tied to their incentive plans and their performance. So that was definitely one of the major things that was allowing me to free up time. And it was a lot on the mental side, right? It's if you don't trust what people are doing, and you're still in operations and everything has to come through you, it's a mental load, and it's unhealthy, and it's also not efficient for the company as a whole. So basically, once I got to that point, then I started being really intentional again about my scheduling, because the company was kind of running me for a little bit. When you grow to a certain point, it gets busier and busier until you kind of figure out a system and you can move to that next stage. So once I got to that point where my team was taking ownership, I have full trust in them. I can leave for a month, and I would have no doubt that they would take care of things, which is great. But I'm also hyper intentional with my scheduling, because I'm still working. It's not like I'm, off laying on the beach or anything like that. But what I've done, it actually came from Dan Sullivan, and he had a really good plan. I don't know if he had a name for it or anything, but he talked about the way he scheduled, and I kind of followed his framework. So what I do, you have multiple calls throughout the week. You have times where you need to focus, but a lot of the times you don't get that focus time in a busy company. And so it's really, really difficult to get that, high level work done when you got a call coming in, somebody's knocking on your door, you have, multiple meetings spread out throughout the day. It just doesn't work very well from an efficiency standpoint. So I do a lot of batching. And so what that is you're just taking similar tasks, and you're kind of making, so you're not switching focus, is you're just doing them all kind of at one time. And so I have Mondays and Wednesdays. Those are my call days. I have calls all day, pretty much all those days. I do emails and just random stuff that kind of, they just kind of take your time, but you just can't focus when you're jumping back and forth from them. So I do all that on Monday and Wednesday. Tuesday and Thursday are my focus days. I just work on building the company. I have zero calls. I have zero, any sort of distraction. And then on Friday is just a free day, and that doesn't mean it's a day off. It just means that I'm catching up on whatever's needed, whether that's focus, whether that's a couple calls I need to do, maybe some damage repair, anything along those lines. I'll be doing on a Friday. So yeah, I think just again, just being intentional with what you're doing and just taking control back, because a lot of the times companies, personal life, it can really run a person, and you really have to just stop and take a second and figure out how to kind of flip the script on that.
Amazing. Yes, and it totally rings a bell because I've been managing or working on my batching. I have never tried a full day, but I think it's a good idea to test fully a day. I've been doing like half a day. I'm going to work on manager and doing things like with my resources. And then I'm doing another thing. Fridays, I've been doing it the same way you're doing. So that's great to learn from you to see what has been working and how you've been able to create this system, oiling the machine and make it flow. And as you mentioned, it's not that you're not busy, you're not doing things, but you're really working on the strategy on making the business grow. And as you said, if you do not delegate, if you're the bottleneck, then things will never progress. So those are like key things and highlights to talk today and worthwhile discussing. And I know we're running out of time pretty much, but is there any final thoughts you have from a leadership standpoint? What has made you a great leader? Is there anything that you go through every day or you practice that obviously will translate into your business, into how you lead others, and obviously within your inner circle too?
Yes, I see this all the time with my consulting clients, and it's always the newer owners that are coming on board. So anyone who's a newer entrepreneur, and this doesn't have to be just in business. This can be in personal life as well. You know, if you're having a health concern, that's top priority over anything in your business, right? But maybe you know you have your personal life dialed in, but you're starting a business up. I would like to see everybody do three prioritizations every day. The top three prioritizations that are going to move the needle in either your company or your personal life, depending on where you're having challenges. And you should be adjusting this on a daily basis. I see a ton of owners come in and they're spending weeks building their websites, trying to develop brochures that can be done in 10 minutes online now, and just spending just basically kind of killing time and not moving the needle at all, right? And so basically I have to kind of flip the script and just let them know, hey, this is the priority. You're out marketing right now. You have no clients coming in, right? You're a brand new agency. Marketing should be your number one on your priority list every single day. That doesn't mean that you don't have other things to work on, but you should be spending 90%, 95% of your time on your top priorities. And you're not going to be able to do 10 priorities in a day. So keep it to 2 to 3 that you can actually complete, and make sure to ask yourself the question, is this going to move the needle for me today, right? Not down the road, not a year from now, but today. And I would say that's been one of the most, one of the hugest things that I've had in my agency, just because, you know, the bottom part of my to-do list usually gets erased because they don't even end up needing to be done. Because when you're working on the top priorities, it kind of eliminates a lot of the noise in the background.
True. Amazing. Yes. Thank you for clarifying and being concise on that. I really will follow that advice. I think there's so much to do every day, but obviously focusing on what's going to move the needle today, then that's really what will point into like to the North Star. So thank you, Justin. Greatly appreciate our time today. Happy to have you here, and we'll stay connected to hear more how things are going and just on how you're crushing things. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for having me, Lilia. Appreciate it.
Thanks.